In the last 10 years, numerous Caribbean nations have turned to China for infrastructure investments, spurring economic development, but also increasing debt burdens. These funds have supported construction of roads, ports, and energy facilities, enhancing regional connectivity and economic opportunities. However, growing concerns exist about debt sustainability as several countries face challenges meeting repayment obligations. The dependence on Chinese financing has sparked debates about long-term economic autonomy and the strategic consequences of these partnerships. Though the investments have modernized infrastructure, effectively managing debt levels and ensuring sustainable economic growth remain significant challenges for the region. In this video, we'll examine the top 10 Caribbean countries in 2025 with the highest debt obligations to China. We'll explore the agreements, benefits, and potential pitfalls behind these financial relationships. From Grenada's stadium renovations to Jamaica's highway developments, we'll analyze how these nations balance progress with potential dependency. Are these investments providing crucial development opportunities or creating future financial crises? Let's investigate. At number 10, we have Grenada. This picturesque island nation has utilized Chinese financing to rebuild and modernize its infrastructure. Grenada currently owes approximately $150 million to China, representing nearly 10% of its total national debt, which stands at around $1.5 billion. China has played a crucial role in Grenada's infrastructure development in recent years. One notable project involved rebuilding the Grenada National Stadium following hurricane damage. Beyond sports facilities, Chinese investments have funded extensive road and bridge construction projects designed to improve transportation across the island. Grenada's debt-to-GDP ratio is currently 69%, according to International Monetary Fund data, a figure closely monitored by economic experts. With a GDP of approximately $2.2 billion, the country's public debt continues to grow as it pursues additional development initiatives. While these infrastructure improvements are boosting tourism and domestic investment, experts caution that the long-term sustainability of this debt remains a significant concern, particularly in a region frequently affected by natural disasters. Grenada maintains an annual economic growth rate of about 2.5%. However, with its small and vulnerable economy, even minor downturns in tourism or global economic conditions could hinder repayment efforts. The nation aims to increase foreign direct investment and diversify its economy to better manage this debt burden. At number 9 is Antigua and Barbuda. Antigua and Barbuda has undergone significant transformation through Chinese investments. Reports indicate the country owes China approximately $300 million, representing about 20% of its foreign debt. For context, Antigua and Barbuda's total external debt amounts to roughly $1.5 billion. A key project funded by Chinese loans is the Deepwater Harbor expansion. This enhancement has enabled larger cruise ships to dock, significantly boosting the tourism sector and increasing trade volume. Tourism continues to be the foundation of Antigua and Barbuda's economy, generating nearly 60% of its GDP. The country saw a 4.1% rise in tourism revenue last year, despite global travel challenges. Chinese funding has supported various developments, including affordable housing initiatives, civic centers, and harbor improvements. However, with an economy heavily reliant on tourism and susceptible to hurricanes and other natural disasters, concerns have emerged about the sustainability of this debt. According to World Bank data, Antigua and Barbuda's foreign debt has been growing at an average annual rate of 4.2%, making repayment increasingly challenging. The government is actively pursuing fiscal reforms and improved revenue collection methods to strengthen debt servicing capabilities. Additionally, the country is working to diversify its economy through investments in digital infrastructure and renewable energy initiatives. Next, at number 8, is Cuba. Surprisingly, Cuba owes China over $500 million. Some analysts suggest the total Chinese exposure might be even greater when including deferred payments on previous loans. This amount represents approximately 15% of Cuba's foreign debt obligations. China has played a vital role in modernizing Cuban infrastructure. Notable projects include the renovation of Mariel Port, now a crucial foreign trade center, and investments in renewable energy projects such as wind farms and solar installations. These renewable energy initiatives aim to help Cuba decrease its reliance on fossil fuels and reduce energy imports, which have historically strained the economy. Cuba faces severe economic challenges. The Cuban economy contracted by 10.9% in 2020, due partly to the pandemic and ongoing U.S. sanctions. This downturn further limited the country's already scarce financial resources. Cuba's GDP is estimated at approximately $100 billion, though much of this reflects state-controlled activity rather than free market performance. The country's overall foreign debt totals around $3.3 billion, with Chinese loans forming a significant portion, though just one element of the broader debt landscape. The repayment outlook remains uncertain, with ongoing negotiations regarding restructuring terms and deferred payment schedules. Despite these challenges, China continues to view Cuba as a strategic regional partner, providing financing, technology, and expertise to support Cuba's economic infrastructure. But Cuba isn't alone in facing substantial debt. At number 7 is the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic owes China over $600 million, nearly 5% of its GDP. With a GDP exceeding $12 billion, these loans constitute a significant element of the country's overall economic framework. The Dominican Republic's relationship with China transformed dramatically in 2018, when it switched diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China. Since then, Beijing has invested billions in various projects from highways and bridges to advanced renewable energy facilities. A notable example is the extensive network of solar farms, which now provide 8% of the nation's energy supply. Yet everything that shines isn't necessarily golden. The nation's trade deficit with China has been expanding at a concerning 14% annually, underscoring the complex nature of these financial relationships. While Chinese financing has accelerated long-awaited infrastructure development and stimulated economic growth, previously recorded at 4.7% annually before the pandemic, the increasing dependence on Chinese imported goods represents a potential economic vulnerability. Economic experts caution that the widening trade deficit combined with increased external borrowing could compromise the country's long-term economic stability. In response, the government is working to strengthen domestic industries and boost exports to narrow the trade gap and enhance its debt repayment capacity. By the way, if you're finding this video informative, please like and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analyses like this. Thank you. Moving to number 6, we have Trinidad and Tobago. This nation presents an interesting case of balancing substantial natural resource wealth with growing external debt. The dual-island country owes China approximately $750 million, representing roughly 12% of its external debt. Trinidad and Tobago, with a GDP of around $20 billion, has traditionally depended on its strong oil and gas industry, which generates nearly 40% of GDP, to fund development projects. Key initiatives include the Cuva Children's Hospital, a cutting-edge medical facility that has enhanced healthcare for thousands of residents. Chinese investments have also driven significant improvements in Port of Spain's transportation infrastructure, enhancing connectivity and stimulating economic activity. However, the instability of global oil markets presents fundamental challenges. In 2020, oil prices plummeted by 35%, significantly affecting government revenues. Although prices have rebounded in subsequent years, the inherent volatility in energy markets means that depending on oil and gas revenues for debt service carries considerable risk. Current government forecasts indicate that oil and gas revenues can fluctuate by up to 20% annually, impacting the nation's ability to consistently service its debt. Trinidad and Tobago is working to diversify its economy through investments in renewable energy and tourism. The government is also implementing fiscal reforms to improve the efficiency of infrastructure spending and ensure it translates into sustainable economic growth. At number 5, we have Suriname. With Chinese financial assistance, Suriname has undergone rapid modernization. However, its debt to China exceeds $800 million, representing nearly 30% of its GDP. With a GDP of approximately $2.7 billion, this high debt level has raised concerns among economists. Suriname's Chinese-funded projects have primarily focused on new bridge construction, road expansion, and agricultural modernization. These initiatives aim to improve connectivity and increase export capacity in a country rich in natural resources like bauxite and gold. However, with a debt-to-GDP ratio of 85%, there is very little room for error. Fluctuating commodity prices and external economic shocks have exacerbated Suriname's financial challenges. Inflation has persisted at around 8%, while economic growth has been inconsistent, averaging approximately 2% in recent years. In light of these challenges, the government faces pressure to balance necessary infrastructure investments with sound fiscal management. Experts note that while these investments have the potential to transform the economy, they could also lead to long-term dependency if not properly managed. The government plans to restructure some of these loans and enhance fiscal transparency to ensure that Chinese investments contribute to sustainable economic outcomes rather than perpetual debt cycles. Next at number 4 is Guyana, an intriguing case that combines long-standing challenges with emerging opportunities. With Chinese debt approaching $900 million, approximately 15% of its GDP, Guyana has historically depended on Chinese financing for major infrastructure projects. Developments like the Georgetown-Leafenrod corridor have strengthened trade connections with neighboring Brazil and boosted regional commerce. However, recent discoveries of extensive oil reserves have dramatically altered Guyana's economic prospects. The country is projected to earn around $5 billion annually from oil production, potentially transforming its fiscal situation. As oil revenues flow in, the nation's GDP is expected to grow beyond its current $6 billion. This newfound wealth offers an excellent opportunity to address existing debt obligations. Guyana's rapid economic transformation raises questions about effective management of oil proceeds and potential fiscal challenges. The government is establishing a sovereign wealth fund to stabilize the economy and prioritize debt repayment. With proper management, Guyana could become a model for resource-rich nations transitioning from debt dependency to fiscal stability. The country has maintained inflation at around 4%, and its annual economic growth is projected to reach 8% over the next 5 years. Current indicators suggest a cautiously optimistic path forward. Now we arrive at our top 3 countries on this list. At number 3 is Barbados, a nation renowned for its rich culture and thriving tourism industry. What might surprise you is that Barbados holds approximately $1 billion in debt to China. While substantial, this debt forms part of a strategic approach to modernize the country's infrastructure. Tourism generates roughly 50% of Barbados's GDP and has received significant investment. Key projects include luxury resort development and major road improvements that have enhanced connectivity across the island. Additionally, Chinese loans have funded improvements to the nation's port facilities, strengthening its position as a regional trading hub. Barbados's external debt currently stands at approximately $2.2 billion, with Chinese loans representing a significant portion. The country's debt-to-GDP ratio is around 60%, a figure the government is working diligently to manage through fiscal consolidation and increased tourism revenue. Barbados saw 5.3% growth in tourism and 2.1% overall GDP growth in 2023, indicating that the nation's economic fundamentals remain resilient despite the debt burden. Government officials emphasize that these investments are intended to deliver long-term benefits such as improved trade performance and public services. However, the challenge lies in ensuring that the debt doesn't restrict future economic flexibility and that repayment schedules can be met without compromising social spending. In light of these challenges, the government faces pressure to balance necessary infrastructure investments with sound fiscal management. Experts note that while these investments have the potential to transform the economy, they could also lead to long-term dependency if not properly managed. The government plans to restructure some of these loans and enhance fiscal transparency to ensure that Chinese investments contribute to sustainable economic outcomes rather than perpetual debt cycles. This newfound wealth offers an excellent second-place contender is the Bahamas, a nation renowned for its breathtaking natural landscapes that has developed an intricate financial relationship with Chinese funding. The Bahamas carries an estimated $1.9 billion in Chinese debt, approximately 22% of its GDP. With a GDP of around $8.6 billion, these loans constitute a substantial portion of the nation's financial obligations. Chinese investments in the Bahamas have focused on upgrading infrastructure throughout the country. Major projects include the development of luxury resorts, expansion of Nassau International Airport, and improvements to the extensive road network that has enhanced tourism access and supported local enterprises. The Bahamas has experienced a 15% increase in port throughput in recent years, a direct result of improved infrastructure funded by Chinese loans. Tourism continues to be the cornerstone of the Bahamian economy, accounting for nearly 40% of the country's GDP. The recent recovery in global tourism has generated a 6% annual increase in visitors, providing an important revenue stream to assist with debt servicing. Nevertheless, the high proportion of GDP committed to foreign debt remains worrisome. The government is actively pursuing strategies to diversify its revenue sources, including investments in technology and renewable energy, to reduce dependence on future borrowing and build a more resilient economy. Finally, at the top of our list is Jamaica. Chinese financing in this nation has been instrumental in modernizing and stabilizing its economy. Jamaica owes China approximately $2.1 billion, representing 28% of its GDP. With Jamaica's GDP estimated at $7.5 billion, raises questions about effective management of oil proceeds and potential fiscal challenges.